All right, so add these layers first before you start anything, and be sure to set your annotated scale to 1 to 240 before you do anything else. All right, so I'm going to draw mine out to the side simply because it's going to be easier for me to demonstrate it that way, but the site plan you would draw directly on top of where things are here. And if we go to, I set up a actual site plan view. So from the front edge here, this is just so you can get, I'm going to show you basically where this is and how you know where to look for this. To this point here is approximately 72, 73 feet. Here's the thing, I have put in a very small marker that you can insert, but it's tiny. It's going to be below the drawing, and it's yellow because it's on the dimension layer. So you can go to insert, more options. You would have to figure it out. I mean, if you were starting from scratch and trying to sit this on the site. And where it goes is on the very left edge. If that dimension wasn't there, where the blue line's coming together, the back side. It's basically the frame line at the back. It's basically the same place you put in the block for the elevation. It's at the same corner. Right there. And then that's going to put in this. It's a small little yellow T. Really tiny. It's just a starting point. You'll erase it. It's just a starting point so you know where to start the plot. That's all it is.
What end do you go off of?
What's that?
What end do you go off of? Does it matter?
The intersection. The intersection right here. So I'm going to, I think I've already copied it over. I copied this over 300 feet so I can do it over here. All right, so you would have to have, it's going to be easier to follow the larger plan of the two. It's got the same information on it. But we're going to talk about how to do the actual site plan now, which is this sheet. This is the only thing you're required to turn in, this sheet. The other sheet was just reference material to show you how I got to do this sheet. The lot 10 comes from that plat. I couldn't have done lot 10 without that plat. So, I mean, if you were doing this in an office, you could design the house, but then you would have to put it on the lot. So you'd have to look at the plat and lay out the plot and then position the house on it. I pre-positioned the house so you know where we want it. Yes, sir.
When you do the plat, you have to put like like this is on a golf course, like the green and the tee box and stuff, that's basically on there.
I don't know how they do golf courses, quite honestly. You would have, usually they back up to a residential neighborhood, so you would have setbacks, I would think.
Detailed though, you have to put where the tee boxes are.
I would imagine you would. I mean, I don't know about a golf course. I never have done a golf course. I don't really know what's required for that. But there'd have to be a lot of drainage and
That makes sense because you have the golf balls like for your window.
yeah. I would think you'd have to do something, just because for drainage and water and because you can't force water onto somebody else's property. You can't add water to their property based on what you're doing on yours. That's illegal. So I never had done a golf course. I don't know the real answer to it. So I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of water traps and sand traps, and how much impervious cover is there on a golf course?
I know, but you always have drainage.
We always have drainage, but most of the golf courses I've seen always have big lakes or retention ponds.
That's true.
in there, so imagine that that's a large part of their water drainage.
You still have to show it on a site plan, though.
Still has to be on the site plan. Just saying probably how it works out.
Could be. All right, so the property line is, as you might expect, is going to be the property line layer. Make this a little larger here. I had to reset my profile earlier. Okay, so we'll do that. So A, plot property line. Yeah, we'll say the property line, you may have to load this line for it because it's ISO 9W100. And again, you can just double click on the line. If it's not in here already, you can always go to load and then scroll down to where it is, pick it, and then OK it and load it. I've already got it in there, so I'm not going to worry about it. All right, so line, and we're going to start from this intersection here where it comes together. Take your ortho off. That's the first thing. Start from the object snap to actually take ortho off. And think about the direction you're drawing and what it says. So what it says, north 00 degrees. So that's almost straight north. And then at the end of it, it says west. So north and then a little bit west. So it's going to lean just slightly to the left. You have to type that in with the distance first. So that's at the symbol at, which is above the number 2. So you have to hold the shift key at, and then it's 114.27 feet. Be sure to add the feet, so this won't work right. And then shift, I say shift angle. The angle sign is next to the M, but it's on the upper, so you have to hit shift and then that, and it's going to give you the angle sign, and then 00 degrees. You can't not type in a degree sign for this. Just type in a D. 00 degrees, 44 minutes, which is the same thing as a foot sign. 38 seconds, which is the same thing as inches. I mean, it doesn't mean the same thing, but it looks the same. 38 seconds west. Got to put that second direction, then enter, and it didn't like something. When it doesn't like something, it'll give you that red box. So let's try it again. I'm going to come out a little bit further. Line, like I say, it's picky. Line at 114.27 feet. Shift angle, and then I got to type in 00D. 44 minutes, 38 seconds. West. Still didn't like it. Okay. I'm not sure why it's not liking that. Let's check the units. Make sure nothing got reset here. Decimal degrees is good. International. That all looks good. I gotta say, again, it's very picky. Alright. Oh. I was typing in 00 degrees. I left out the direction. That's probably the problem. North 00 degrees. 44 minutes. 38 seconds. West. That was it. I didn't give it the correct direction. All right, and then we're going to go back to the right, and it goes, and if you look, it says south 89 degrees. East is, you start at south and you go back east 89 degrees. You're not quite back to horizontal, so it's going to slope down basically. So always the distance first at 113.84 feet. Shift angle south 89D for degrees. 17 minutes, 55 seconds, east. All right, so here's a case where it says north, and which way would north be? It would go up, right? We don't want to go up as we're drawing this, so we need to use the congruent angle. So if it says northeast, we're going to be going southwest. So at 115.70 feet angle, what did I just say? South 08 degrees, 02 minutes, 47 seconds, and then the other direction is going to be west. You have to change both of them. All right, and then we come to the arc. We can't really draw the arc right now, so we need to draw the chord. So we have to look at the chord information that's actually under the arc data there on that same page. C17, radius 250, length 38.35, but the chord distance is what we need. So that's going to be at 38.32 feet, and then it's going to be shift angle, and that's going to be, where is it, north 86 degrees, 20 minutes, 55 seconds. And what's the other direction? West. And then we have the last segment there. Again, look at how it reads. It says north. Remember where your axis is, and it says north and then 89 degrees east. Well, north 89 degrees east means it's slightly going to be going to, it's rising basically. But which way are we drawing it in? We're drawing it in the opposite direction, so we got to reverse the direction. So that's going to be at 57.92 feet. Shift angle, and then instead of northeast, it needs to be southwest. South 89 degrees, 15 minutes, 22 seconds, west. Just go ahead and enter that. Now, the world is round. It's not flat.
What?
Surprise.
No, there's pretty
You-
good evidence out there.
The reason I say that is that engineers, you know, there's a known error here because they're rounding stuff off to hundredths of a foot. Okay, which is fine, but anytime you round anything out, it's not going to come to an exact point anymore. So, how much is this actually off? If you actually zoomed in on this, you're going to find that there's a certain distance between the two here, but it's nothing to worry about because it's a known tolerance thing. So if I set this to as high as, you don't need to do this, 1/256, and I wanted to know how far is it, you know, from here to there. Well, that's a whopping 17, they were 256th of an inch. It's about a 16th of an inch out of several thousand square feet. The stake they drive in the ground to pinpoint where the corner of the lot is larger than the discrepancy here. So, an iron pin they usually drive into the ground at the corners, you're not going to get that close. But the reason it's off is because all those hundredths of a foot have been rounded off to the nearest hundredths of a foot. So you're never going to come, or very rarely are you going to come to an exact point here. So for our purposes, all we're going to do is connect things. So again, it is off, but it's a known and recognized tolerance, and nobody cares. So 1/16 of an inch times what? I don't know what it would be. It'd be probably less than a 1/16 of an inch as far as the error in square footage. So you're going to end up actually being below where that original T was for that, which is fine. All right.
When you go into do your labeling at the end.
You label as the legal description has it.
I'm sorry?
I said you label as the legal description would have it.
Okay.
So that means that even if you draw it in a separate angle, the direction you typed in southwest rather than northeast, you still type in the legal description. They don't care how you have to draw it.
Right, but when we do it, is that just an annotext?
Yeah, it's just text.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Okay.
We got a long way to get there. Okay, so right now, this is still a chord and not the arc. What the chart says is that the radius is 250 feet for that arc. The way to do this is to draw 3 circles, because that makes it really easy. But remember to type in the feet for it. So circle, and it's 250 feet radius. Feet, not inches. And so, and I didn't put my center line right, then I'm going to also change this to a continuous line so we can see where it crosses. All right, so circle. The end point of the arc's what we're looking for here, and then 250 feet, which is going to be way the heck out there. Same thing at the other corner of the arc, corner of the chord is here. Again, 250 feet. Where they cross down here gives you where the arc will be up above. So do a third circle where they cross that intersection. Type in 250. They will cross up here at the chord, which means is you can trim back to the chord. Well, let's see. Let's do it this way. And then get rid of the chord. All right, so the property line doesn't look right. That's because the property line type for this, because this scale is so much larger than 1/8 of an inch, we have to kind of reset the scale on the line type. And let me see where that is. It's actually on the list of layers there. It says it should be 0.05, not 0.5, 0.05. It is on the proper layer. Yeah, I set the layer before I started.
Oh, I can see. All I can see was the white at the top. Sorry about
Yeah, they plot property line. So that's what it looks like. Looks like I didn't change this one. Must have missed it. 0.5. Okay. That's because I drew this in as a continuous line. So that one I'm just going to come back and match. Okay. So that's our outline of our plot. We also have setback lines to deal with. So from the front is 25 feet. So we could set our layer to, close this for a second. I think it's called setback, a plot setback, yeah. And then we could do the offset thing and set it to layer. And let's see, current, I believe is how you do it. And then we need to set the front setback to 25 feet. Needs to follow the property line. And then the back setback is 10 feet, so another offset. The side offsets are 5 feet for the side yards. Didn't mean to bring that up. Offset. So 5 foot yard setbacks on the sides. Go away. 5 foot, yeah. Again, the line type isn't correct. You have to go back in and reset this. These are actually 1.6 for these 5 lines. Not 106, 1.6. Okay, it is common practice in these kind of plans that you do not want to cross the property line. because you're concerned about this property only for the setbacks. So you would need to trim those back. In this particular case, the rear yard setback and the public utility easement happen to be in the same place. We're going to use the setback line for both. This looks like it's coming to the edge okay. So it needs to hit the property line but not go beyond it. We also have a public utility easement here in the front. A plot. PUE. All right, so offset 15 feet for that. Remember, we saw that on the plat. And again, these will also change to 1.6 as far as the line type scale. Make sure they don't go beyond. All right, now, as a construction technique, how wide was the right-of-way? It's a 50-foot right-of-way. So, I mean, I could just give you the numbers, but I want you to understand how I got to where I got. So you have a 50-foot right-of-way out here, which the street goes in the middle of. So 50 feet from property line to property line. Right-of-way means property line to property line. And that should be, so your 50 feet is across there, but we have a required 27-foot wide street. So we're going to assume it's going down the middle of that. Offset, then I'm going to just say layer current for this point. All right, so offset 25 feet. And then the street itself is 27 feet wide. So half of the street size is 13.5 feet, and 13.5 adds up to 27. 13 and 6. The green is not the right layer, but I'm using it for demonstration. So this is the center line of the street. That was the right of way. This is the actual street. We know we need a 6-inch curb on our side because it's the one we're concerned about. And then the 4 feet sidewalk has to be in the right of way between the property line and the edge of the street here. So for our purposes, we're going to do 4 feet, 4 feet, and 3 feet. So off of this property line here, come 4 feet. That's grass, basically. Come another 4 feet for the sidewalk. That's going to leave 3 feet and then 6. So you end up with 4, 4, 3 is 11, 11, 6. 11, 6, and 13, 6 to the center line is 25 feet. 25 feet. So that gets you back. So we don't really need this anymore over here. I just put that in to show you how I derived the numbers and where they came from. Now, you would also follow the same reasoning here. By the way, the green line's on the wrong layer. We'll fix that here in a second. So we didn't have a driveway here. That'd be something like it looked like it does belong on this other layer, which is the A-plot sim layer. So I'm going to go ahead and change that now. And also that needs to be 1. Okay, so we got our sidewalk, our curb. We don't have a driveway in, nor do we have the house yet. But we got the setbacks. We got the utility easement. We got the sidewalk. We got the curb. Let's locate the house. The easiest way to do that is to find out where the frame wall of is the perimeter line of the frame wall on the first floor, plus the porches. So let me show you. I'm going to go back to A1, not A1. Yeah, it's A1. A1 frame, A1 wall frame. I'm going to change the color here, at least temporarily, to yellow so we can see it. All right, so the edge line of the house, the perimeter line of the frame, plus the porches is where you can either copy the layer or trace over it, whatever, but the particular layer for that is just a plot. I'm just going to copy it over for convenience, but that's how you would do it. You either copy it from the A1 wall frame or you trace over it. But be sure that particular house is not on the first floor. You're going to have it on a plot. This layer. So I'm going to go back and freeze that. So it's the perimeter wall frame plus the porches and the columns. So I'm going to copy that over for convenience, for a demonstration. That was over 300 feet. Like I say, I'm drawing mine out to the side just so I can show you how I got to where I did on the plot plan. If this shows up, this is a parametric thing for 3D. Just go to parametric and say hide all. Okay, so I copied the dimensions over to. You would copy the steps over to from that layer. So those would be available as well. So the columns and the perimeter lines of the house are on that a plot layer. The actual edge lines of the porch and the steps are on the a plot sim layer. All right, so we got the house located. So let's put in the driveway. I came 1 feet off the setback line. It's going to be on that a plot sim layer. And then I use the minimum distance for the driveway, which is 12 feet. And then up here I use the 18 feet desirable distance because we need that anyway for our double garage. So draw a line from the midpoint here. Object snap. Oh, what is it? Oh, snap. Just as the construction line, and then offset it 9 feet in both directions. And then I used a bit of a 5 foot turnaround, so offset this line 5 feet further back. And extend it on across. All right, so then up here, we have a 10-foot radius for this. The best way to make this work, because this is not out far enough, is to extend it out a little bit. So draw a construction line that's a little bit beyond where the property line is, and go ahead and extend all those over. And then the next thing is we want to actually disconnect the curve from itself so we can have a little easier time creating what we need to do next. Because what we need to do is just trim that out, basically disconnect the arc there. All right, so we're going to use a fillet to create the radius. F for fillet, or it's also here. Type in R for radius and then 10 feet and come from the outside of the curb out here on this one, connect it to that, and do the same thing on the other side. Connect from here to there. And then we have a 6-inch curb that flares down to nothing. You know, the curb's there and it goes in the driveway, it goes to nothing. So civil engineer might have a problem with doing it this way, but for our purposes it'll get what we want to demonstrate here. Basically, this has to go down to nothing, so the easiest way is just to drag it over to there, to where it's basically flat when it gets to that point. You know, depending on the grade and a whole number of things that may or may not actually occur exactly there, but for this class, it's good enough. And then trim this out. Wrong way. All right, so the driveway's coming back. Same thing with the, you don't want this running all the way across there, so you're probably better off to trim one side out of it and then do your fillet, still using that 10-foot radius. And I left this line in because this will not fillet if I trim this back already. It needs to be a line that's further back, but the actual curve doesn't go all the way back like that. See, I have to have this line back here to be able to do that, but then I can come back, reset my fillet radius to 0 at this point. And then I've got my 12-foot driveway into my 18-foot driveway and my bit of a turnaround at the back. You don't have to have a 4-foot sidewalk on the property line, so 3 feet's usually more than enough. I would just take it from the center line of the steps all the way out to the sidewalk here. That probably is not a perpendicular, so be careful about that. And I'm offsetting 18 inches, and then where sidewalks run into each other, you would just trim that out. You don't have to do it that way. I mean, you could come off the driveway and do, I've had people do curved. Doesn't have to be straight, but you know, that's just easy.
Come off the driveway, you mean like put the sidewalk to the
Well, you could have a sidewalk coming off the driveway over here, or, you know, if you park back here, maybe you want a sidewalk curving around back to the porch around here. I don't know. You could do different things. I just did this because it's coming off the front sidewalk and that's a straight shot. But if you did that, it's going to change the impervious cover. But I've seen people do it. I would not move the house around too much because you got to have enough room for make all these radiuses work and get into the garage back there. And also you need to be a little bit set back from these setbacks because remember, this is the frame line and we actually have 3 inches of siding out there probably, so it gets closer to the line. So you want to be off of that setback line a little bit. You know, if they planted a couple of trees here, so that's actually going to put that in as an X reference, not as a block. So if you go and type in XR for X reference, give it a second to come up. Always takes a second. There's already trees in this drawing, but you would find this by going to drawing, attach drawing, and then you go to your shared directory as usual. Make sure you've got this block with you when you leave this class, otherwise this won't work in the future. It's got to be able to find it. But anyway, site plot plan, trees, put it on the back corner of the property lines here. Now you notice how this came in. An X reference is another drawing. It's an entirely separate drawing, but you're referencing that other drawing into this drawing. So unless you edit the X reference or the other drawing, you can't change it from within this drawing. You can change the way it appears. It will not change the way it prints. For example, if I go to options, there is an X reference display. If I go one way, it makes it lighter. If I go the other way, it makes it darker. So if I go this way and I say apply, it makes it almost disappear, if not disappear. If I go the other way, back to the other side, then it makes it appear like that. So you say, well, what difference does it make? Why would I care one way or the other? Probably not so much in a residential drawing, but if you're doing a complicated commercial site and you're trying to overlay stuff and you want like contours or something to come in but be kind of in the background and not prominent on the sheet, but you still want to see them while you're working on it, then it's good to have it kind of faded out so you know it's not actually part of the sheet, but it's that's not what I wanted. It's more part of the it's part of the X reference, so you know the contours are related to a civil drawing. I think it was about there before. So it's really a visual reference on this is actually part of an X reference and not part of your actual drawing. You've referenced that drawing into your drawing. So, by the way, when you bring this in, it'll come on its own set of layers, which are different than the ones that are in the original list. There's actually some additional layers that come in with that, so you have to make sure that those are turned on when you do your layout. It's down here under trees. All right. When you dimension this drawing, you need to use aligned dimensions. All right, so that just means you go to annotate, and instead of using linear, you need to turn on the align dimension. It's just in the drop down here. And then it'll parallel the actual property line. I'm not going to put them in yet because what we want to do is tie down the four corners of the building. So I'm going to go back and put my guidelines on layer 0 so I can get rid of them later. But basically, I'm going to go from the corner of the building and go perpendicular. So I can turn my object snap off. Is my perpendicular on? I don't think it is. Let me see. Nope. Okay, so I'm going to turn that on. All right, going from the corner here to the perpendicular there. Going from this corner here to the perpendicular here, and then the other two corners here. Same thing. This is not a vertical line, so it's not going to be quite horizontal. So you're going to go from the corner of the building, and these are guidelines that you come back and erase. All right, so going back to our A-plot anodims. Where are they? There they are. Annotate a line. You want to go from where that intersects all the way. So I left this at 256. I'm going to change that back. Go back to my this. That was just for demonstration earlier, so I'm going to put this back at a 1/16 of an inch. Okay. All right, so, and then you'd want to do the same thing, and you're coming from the corner of the property line itself down to where your construction line is, and then I would line these up as well. And then you need the other direction, and you just keep it directly on top of the construction line there. And you would do the same thing over here, except it gets a little more tricky on this side because of the dimension style. This direction, now see, that went in as a linear dimension instead of an aligned dimension. It gets really, okay, that's closer. All right, when you do the dimensions that are vertical over, not truly vertical, but in the vertical direction, they're going to come in backwards. And remember, you're coming to the where it hits the property line here. Same thing's going to happen with the one above it. It's just the proper, It's the way the dimensions were set up. Yep. The line, I went to the wrong point. Should have been over here. No wonder that dimension looks off. There we go. Dimension aligned. All right, so you want those kind of aligned, but you see they came in backwards. There is a way to fix it. It's not terribly logical, but there is a way to fix it. You go to the drop down under dimensions, and where is it? I think it's this one. Text angle, and you select it, and you would set specify angle for dimension text, and you would think that you're turning 180 degrees, it'd be 180. Well, it doesn't really work with 180. It does that with 180. It's like it's putting it in at the actual angle. So it's not like a rotation. So what you need to do is same drop down, same command. Instead of that, just type in 90. And then, of course, we don't want any gaps in the dimensions. Just move it back above the line to where it closes. So drop down, text angle, and even though it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, type in 90 and then move it above to the left of the line to where it closes. So that's the way you fix that. And then we still have impervious cover to worry about. So impervious cover is whatever water can't through divided by the total lot area. So the total lot area and the other both can be figured by a polyline like we did the floor plan. You don't have to necessarily keep this polyline in there, so we won't necessarily do that, but PL for polyline, and then go from corner to corner around the lot. This is an arc, so A for arc. Let's come back and correct that in a minute. And then L for line. Close it. Grab this, bring it back to the arc, and then list it. $11,920 square feet. So that is, if you look at the lot data on the right side, top of the page, you can see the second line there says 11,920 square feet lot area. So that's where that number comes from. It's the total lot area. It's within the property line. You don't include anything in the right of way. It's all within the property lines. And you would do the same thing for impervious cover. So in this case, we would start here with a sidewalk. Include the steps, include the porch, include the house, anything water cannot get through. Including the back of the house and the back porch. Including the driveway. Arc, A for arc, L for line. You don't go across the property line, so arc again to the end of the arc there, which is here. Okay, and then we've got, okay, I went too far. I'm going to undo that. I only need to go to here because I need to go back up with a line this direction. Arc. Oh, that came from the wrong place. So it's going to do that. All right, we'll start over. Let's go back here in line, then an arc to here, then a line from there, then an arc there, line here, line down to there, that's not doing what I wanted to do. Let's go back. All right, so that's an arc. Next one's a line. Front porch, front steps. Back down the sidewalk. Back to where it closes. All right, we still got to fix this over here. All right, I think that's good. That leaves me with 3,679 square feet, which is where if you look back at the right side of that page, you see 3,679 square feet impervious cover. So anything water can get through. And then you take that number, 3679, divided by the 11,920, and we've got 30.86% impervious cover on the lot. And we're allowed 45%, so we're well under. But that's how you would do it. And you don't necessarily have to keep that, but you could put that on another layer and keep it in the file if you wanted to. All right, we talked about that. All right, one of the things you should leave to the last after you get all the dimensions and stuff in is actually putting in what I call the symbolic iron pins. I don't know where this started, and it baffles me that engineers lay things out this way, but to my knowledge, it's the way it's been done forever and ever and ever, because they're always about being so precise with their numbers. But then they go and draw circles in to represent the symbolic iron pins on the corners of the property lines, which seems contradictory to me, but whatever. All right, so on A plot sim, we're going to put in a 4-inch radius circle, and then you trim it out. So that's the reason you want to wait to the very last thing you do this. So it's a 4-inch radius, and once you get it in, you want to trim it out. And there's 5 of those because there's 5 places where it turns in the property line. So you would have circle here at 4, a circle here. This is the one everybody forgets. It's the other end of that arc. And you don't leave the lines in it. Like I say, engineers are always precise, but this is the one place they really don't do that. Make sure you don't catch the dimension when you do that. All right, so we got the corners there, and then you would have to put in your meets and bounds as text and all your setback and requirements. So, but you want it to parallel the line. So the easiest way to do that is to figure out what the line's angle is. Like this one is actually 359. So it's not 0 or 3, it's not horizontal. It's actually 359. So when you go back and put in your text, when you put it in here, you can put it in straight if you want to begin with. In this particular case, it would be south 89. And by the way, for the text, you can type in %D, not when you're laying it out in the graphics, but when you're typing in the text, you can type in %D, and it'll give you the degree sign. And then 17 minutes, 55 seconds east, and then I probably need a space there, and then a couple of spaces, and 113.84 feet. All right, let me go back. Escape. Whoop, I escaped too quick. Try that again. All right. South 89 degrees. Anyway, 89% D. 17 minutes, 55 seconds. East, 113.84 feet. That should have been a capital E. These should be capital letters. All right, so this is not at the same angle as that, but remember this was 359, so what you do is you select it and go to properties, and this is called rotation. Type in the number here, and then that'll get you pretty close to what that angle is. So you want the text to parallel the property line. You don't want it horizontal or vertical, it needs to parallel. Just like the dimensions need to be parallel. Now, one thing we forgot to do, if we come back and freeze the dimensions, home freeze. Remember I had those guidelines in there? You don't want to leave those in there because it will make the lines look too thick. And those were just guidelines to put in the dimensions anyway. The north arrow is not an insert. I drew a circle and a triangle and 3 lines. You can make your own north arrow, but you got to have a north arrow on the sheet. And you also need to put in the arc data and the lot data. You can put that in as a table. I just typed it in on mine. I didn't do anything special for it. So let me go back. So this is all. And what I did for this is the normal size at this scale. If I, at the 1 to 240, this is what the text will come in at. I scaled this up 1.5. So I took one of these and just used the scale command. 1.5. That's all I did. I just scaled up. I didn't make a different style or anything. I just scaled up the existing text at 1.5. And this is just a drawn line, and I just put these in as separate text. All right. And then you put that all on the sheet. And then you're done. It's one single viewport, so it's not a big deal. So the actual drawing of the site plan, it's not that big a deal. But all the information that goes into the site plan comes from any number of places, which is my point. You have to be careful. The main thing is, in the city of Austin, you got to know what your zoning is, or man, can you get yourself into trouble.